A US Senate staffer discusses his personal journey to how the UAP issue became more credible after the 2017 New York Times Tic Tac story. Dr. Garry Nolan describes a death threat he received for disclosing more than the UFO control elite wanted publicly revealed. Finding the right approach to take to break down the walls of UFO secrecy and the hidden political forces behind it. Donald Trump hasn't done much to promote UFO disclosure, so what's he waiting for? David Grusch becomes a senior advisor to Congressman Eric Burleson on the UFO issue. There's a PEAD document concerning President Eisenhower's decision to hide the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrial life. These stories and more on Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome to this April 5 edition of Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review. I'm very pleased to be back on air. It's been a long recovery journey for me, given the health issues that I've been dealing with. And I really do thank people for sending me their prayers, their healing advice and so forth. That has all been very helpful. It's become clear to me that I'm just one person out of many that is doing this kind of work, that we are being targeted. That is becoming very clear. And it seems that this will be something that won't let up for a while. So I hope you bear with me as I slowly recover my voice and health and start doing webinars again. We delayed the next webinar on the Star Trek future because I don't know if I could do a 5-hour webinar given the quality of my voice at the moment. But as I do get better, I'll let you know, and we will go forward with that. And also the monthly briefings, they will also resume at some point. Again, this will be when I'm definitely feeling up to it, but doing these week in reviews is a good practice run for the other briefings and webinars. All right, so let's get into it. So there is a document called a PEAD, which I hadn't really come across before. It's a Presidential Emergency Action Directive. So apparently President Eisenhower issued one of these to hide the existence of UFOs and non-human intelligence from the public. And according to Dr. Eric Davis, he says that this is 100% true, that such a document exists, and he's seen them inside the intel community because of his security clearance. So let's listen to what Eric Davis has to say about this PEAD document and what its implications are as far as President Eisenhower is concerned.
There is something, it's a kind of emergency executive order called a Presidential Emergency Action Directive, yes. And, we've had a number of people with intelligence community backgrounds who have argued or suggested that there are a number of these emergency action directives that have been written and then kept issued and then kept in secret that concern UAP and that have actually created something like a legal administrative framework for classified programs. So the question concerns, can you say anything about the source you have for that information or why you're confident about that? And can you shed some more light on that?
There's no source for this information. I have security clearances with the intelligence community and the Department of Defense, so I see these presidential emergency action directives within that community in a classified basis. So I already know their history. The Brennan Center has a web page that mentions the PEAD. The PEAD is what we'll call it here. So this isn't source information. It's not a rumor. It's not a myth. It's factual, classified information. Although the PEAD itself is not classified by name or its existence, because the Brennan Center has already written something up about it on its website. I think the question switched in front of me, so I couldn't answer. Can't remember can you switch that question back to the first one? Yeah, there we go. So then the second part is, how confident am I that the PEAD exists? Well, it's 100%. Because Jim Semivan, who retired from the CIA back in 2017, 2016, 2015 or thereabouts, he knows all about the PEADs. And he has encountered those during the 30-plus year career that he had at the Central Intelligence Agency. And so the PEADs are well known. If you're in the intelligence community for a long time and you work up at high level, you'll see. I'm sorry, I just got flipped off my phone there. There we go. You'll see the PEADs come up in some sort of briefing environment.
Well, there you have it. From Dr. Eric Davis, that there are these documents, PEADs, that are used for briefing people. And they are documents that if you have the right security clearance and you want to get up to speed with what's going on in some compartmentalized program where you have need to know, then you'll have access to the PEAD documents and it gives you the information you need. So very interesting. Okay, James Jesus Angleton is a key figure in the JFK assassination. In my book, Kennedy's Last Stand, I went into detail about Angleton and what role he played when it came to the assassination, not just of JFK, but also of Marilyn Monroe. So it's very interesting that in this recent release of JFK documents, that some of the files concerning James Angleton were excluded. So you have to ask yourself, well, if you're excluding files related to one of the key figures associated with the assassination, then, I mean, just how exhaustive is this document release concerning the JFK files? So I guess we are going to see a lot of gaps, a lot of documents that have been withdrawn, hidden, even from those that eventually were released into the public arena. I mean, it may be that some of these documents was simply destroyed or lifted, taken out of the archives, or however they're doing it. But certainly this is a big concern that Angleton's files are not in this release of the JFK assassination files. Okay, so with the release of the JFK assassination files, there's also a lot of confusion because people might associate some of the earlier leaked documents, like the MJ12 documents that have been available for years on the internet, with the JFK assassination files. So there's sometimes a confusion. So, for example, here is something about EBEs controlling the far side of the moon. And it is a leaked majestic document, and some people associated it with the JFK assassination files release. So this is where there needs to be a little bit of discernment. Not everything people are going to be talking about when it comes to the JFK assassination files release is actually going to be from the release. Some of the documents that people will be talking about, especially when it comes to the existence of extraterrestrial biological entities operating on the far side of the moon, that's the sort of information you don't get from these official JFK document releases, but it is part of the majestic documents framework. So, yeah, something to definitely keep in mind. Okay, so here we have a very interesting story that Argentine President Javier Milei orders the release of all remaining documents on Nazis who fled the country after World War II, including information on Hitler in Argentina after 1945. So this is very interesting because President Milei is an ally of President Donald Trump, and because Trump wanted to release the truth or have as much information released on these on the JFK assassination, that you have his Argentine equivalent wanting to do the same when it comes to the Nazis. And that's very interesting because we have quite a number of people that actually point to Argentina being the new headquarters of the Fourth Reich after the Second World War, and that the Fourth Reich used southern Argentina, especially that area around Bariloche, Patagonia, to be able to create a colony in Antarctica and send it the necessary supplies and manpower and so forth for it to thrive. And this is where there may be some very important information that gets released about the Nazis in Argentina, which will help us prove that there was the creation of a German dark fleet or Nachtwaffen in Antarctica after the Second World War. Okay, so here's a story on David Grusch becoming a senior advisor to a congressman, Eric Burleson, on the UFO issue. In this story, what we have is David Grusch, who is kind of someone that broke some important barriers when he testified before Congress about the existence of whistleblowers with information on a crashed UFO recovery program, that some UFOs, that the non-human intelligence had been recovered, and that these were being studied in different corporate facilities. And so he was someone that really kind of like broke new ground and said that he had a lot more information to share, but because he didn't have the clearance, he needed to wait. Well, now it seems that by becoming a senior advisor to Congressman Burleson, Grusch will get the clearance he needs and will be able to supply a lot of answers on UFOs to members of the US Congress. So that's very exciting. We'll see exactly how that unfolds, because I believe it's going to be happening very soon. So here's the official release, the official announcement on Congressman Burleson's website, where he's just announcing that David Grusch will be a senior advisor to him, and there's no date I see here. This press release was March 27. So I think the position that Grusch is going to take in Congressman Burleson's office begins very soon, if it hasn't already begun. So that is a very interesting development there. So hopefully the Congress will be able to make progress when it comes to putting out the truth, because at the moment Congress has, the hearings that have been held, I think there's been 3 hearings held in the US Congress. Some of them have broken new ground with these whistleblower revelations from people like David Grusch, but others have been a little disappointing in terms of releasing new information. So there really needs to be someone working on the inside with members of Congress that helps them put out what's really going on when it comes to crashed UFO retrieval programs, existence of non-human intelligence, and so forth. Okay, so here's a post from Joe Mergia, or UFO Joe, and he says Donald Trump has signed executive orders for Epstein, JFK, MLK, RFK, and he's ordered those files to be progressively declassified. He hasn't done that yet with the UAP files. He hasn't that, and that's a huge question mark. Why has the president not followed up with his promise to be more open with disclosure on UAPs? Have the intelligence community got the president around their little finger? That's the issue. The ball is now in President Trump's court. So, I think this is a very important point, that Donald Trump at the moment hasn't done very much at all to promote UFO disclosure. And that's contrary to the campaign, especially when his son, Donald Trump Jr., was doing interviews and talking about these UFO crash retrieval programs, and people like David Grusch with information about that. So why has Trump kind of taken a back seat to all of this? To me, this is just one more sign that we are in a current environment where, for better or worse, whatever you want to call them, you call them the dark side, call them the controllers, they are, I think, in control. They're really dictating terms. Now, the White Hats, the Earth Alliance, the Positive ET groups, I think they're doing a lot of stuff in the background to try and help us move forward. Right now, when you across the whole spectrum of UFO-related information, whether we're talking about whistleblowers, whether we're talking about UFO reports, drones, I think the dark side really does have the upper hand at the moment. Now, how long that'll last for, I don't know. I hope it's not long, but right now, I think we are pretty much just watching this ongoing battle between the Earth Alliance and the controllers, and the controllers have been able to shut things down pretty well. Now, will that change soon? I hope so, but still, it is quite a concern when someone like Donald Trump, who's said in the past that he will release these files, doesn't do anything. Here's the latest book by Elena Danaan. About 2 months she spent on the planet, on a planet that she traveled to via Neptune, and she spent 2 months on this planet in another, I believe, universe, and got to interact with some incredible beings. So really amazing experiences that Elena has had. A lot of wisdom there to be able to gain, or to be able to learn about. And of course, this is another source of information about different extraterrestrial beings, how they live, how they connect with the Earth. So a very gripping story here by Elena Danaan, and I think you will enjoy this book. I mean, all of Elena's books have been very informative, well written, backed by a lot of facts that people can confirm for themselves. So this is very interesting. This Neptune cold-ass connection through some kind of Stargate, which is what she says she traveled through. So, if you haven't yet purchased a copy, then I recommend that you do buy a copy and enjoy her book, Cold-ass. Okay, so something from Christopher Mellon. This is one of a number of meetings on the Hill this week. All were refreshingly bipartisan. We're not in composition. I hope that members and staff found these meetings productive. Their interest and involvement is crucial and bodes well for the future. What he is referring to here is that there does seem to be, at the moment, this kind of bipartisan consensus in the US Congress where, regardless of whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat, you all want to get to the bottom of the UFO issue. And it seems to be these members of Congress, we're talking about a small minority here in the entire US Congress, that they are the ones that are trying to get to the bottom of this issue. And there's very few of them, but they've kept it largely bipartisan, which is good because this is where I think you can make progress. You got Christopher Mellon, a former intelligence operative, Lou Elizondo, also a former intelligence operative, who's now become a whistleblower, best-selling author, and so forth. So I think we can look forward to more meetings in Congress where you do have this kind of bipartisan consensus that UFO disclosure is a good thing. Now, will that change as we get closer and closer to the real truth being revealed? I don't know. I imagine that when push comes to shove, when things really become important in terms of where these meetings are going and what their result is, that the controllers will step in and throw the spanner in the works. So let's see what happens. Okay, so here is a story about a 1976 inventor, Stanley Meyer, who created a car that could run on water based on the principle of splitting water molecules into their atomic building blocks, burning the hydrogen to create energy, and then releasing oxygen, thereby generating no carbon emissions. Stanley Meyer was able to get into a vehicle or develop one of these water-propelled cars, and was able to travel from New York to Los Angeles on just 22 gallons of water. That's quite a claim, but that's what he was able to do. Now, unfortunately, Stanley Myers, I think he was approached the classic carrot and sticks approach, and whatever carrot they offered him, it wasn't enough, or he just, out of principle, said, no, I want to release this to the world. And so he died under mysterious circumstances. And he had said that he'd been threatened several times by oil conglomerates from around the world. So let's play this clip here, and you can kind of get an idea of Stanley Meyer.
Meyer's invention may make it even more valuable. He has developed what's called a water fuel cell. It has taken the place of his old gas tank. The water fuel cell breaks down water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen. The hydrogen is used to run his dune buggy.
I don't care if you use rainwater, well water, city water, ocean water. If you don't have any fresh water, go ahead and use snow. If you don't have any snow available to you, then use salt water because there's no adverse effect to the fuel cell.
Meyer started working on this project 4 years ago. He's not a scientist. He isn't even a chemist. In fact, he never graduated from college. Myers was determined, he says, to design something to protect this country from oil embargoes.
And we have calculated that if we take the dune buggy from Los Angeles to New York, we would roughly use 22 gallons of water.
The Pentagon flew a lieutenant colonel in last week to look at Myers' invention. There's talk of possibly using it in the Star Wars defense program and to run army tanks. Water has always been considered a precious.
Well, there you have it. Stanley Myers was a pioneer in coming up with a water-powered car, and the reward he got for that was to die under mysterious circumstances, and his invention disappearing from the public arena. So that's just one example of many inventors who have gone through a similar process. And I think ultimately, we will get the full truth about these individuals, these inventors, what happened to them, who did what to them, and I think history will honor them. So that I think is coming. Okay, so here's a very interesting tweet from Kelly Chase. I don't know Kelly Chase, host of the UFO Rabbit Hole. Okay, there you go. So she's the host of the UFO Rabbit Hole, and she talks about going beyond respectability politics. She thinks it has no place in ufology because ufology itself exists out of the boundaries of respectable discourse and always has. So at its core, respectability politics is about appeasing dominant cultural norms to gain legitimacy, toning things down, sanding off the weird edges, and behaving in a way that's palatable to mainstream institutions. But the whole point of ufology is that it challenges those very institutions. It pushes back against sanctioned narratives, hierarchical gatekeeping, and the illusion that consensus reality is synonymous with truth. Okay, so it's quite a long tweet, a lot of good information in there to consider. Now, I think this kind of respectability politics, that's what is happening right now in the US Congress. I already talked about the bipartisan nature of what's happening in the Congress, but that's because nothing of substance is really being released. Nothing of substance is being debated in terms of legislation. If you remember the UAP Disclosure Act, that became controversial when the heads of the Congress Intelligence and Defense Committees basically said that these were things that went too far, and so they gutted the UAP Disclosure Act. And so I think that's where we are at the moment. As long as proposed legislation and hearings don't go beyond a particular level that threaten the status quo, that bipartisanship or respectability politics will continue. Now, at some point, there will be a need for having different members of Congress becoming taking a more provocative stance along the lines of pushing back against this respectability politics that Kelly Chase says can be a problem. And so I do agree with that. I think that right now, nothing of substance is really coming out from the Congress, so everyone can be bipartisan. It's all respectability politics. But once real issues of importance like eminent domain, who has control over these technologies that have been recovered and are now in corporate facilities, once issues like that start being debated in the Congress, I think you're going to see the breakdown very quickly of bipartisanship. And you're going to need people who are going to be very strong advocates of getting to the truth and proposing that UFO legislation deals with things like eminent domain, subpoena power against corporate CEOs who maybe are holding back. And so anyway, I think she raises some very important points. Okay, so here is a short video from Paola Harris. And now, not many people know of Paola Harris because she's one of these old-time veteran UFO researchers. She's been around since the 1970s. But in the 1990s and onwards, she interviewed leading whistleblowers of the day, people like Philip Corso, Clifford Stone, Paul Hellyer, and many, many others. And she included those in a series of books. And those books are available, but she teaches in the Exopolitics Institute certificate program. And I think in terms of widening your knowledge base, especially by communicating with someone who had first-hand experience with all these different whistleblowers that began coming forward in the 1990s, you really can't do any wrong by just doing one of her courses and registering for that. So this is a video that I have linked, and it's linked on my Twitter feed. It goes for 7 minutes, so it's a little long for me to play now. But let me just play the first minute.
Hi, everybody. This is Paola Harris, and welcome to the Exopolitics Institute instructors. I'm really, really happy with Manuel Lemeroy and Dr. Michael Sala to be part of the faculty of this incredible Exopolitics Institute. I've been teaching for a long, long time, and I really love it. It is my dream because I do have a master's in education and think that the delivery system of a university class is the way to do disclosure. So may I encourage you to sign up for the Exopolitics Institute for either the diploma or the certificate. And I wanted to talk about the different classes. So, I'm willing to do any of my 4 classes with any.
Okay, so there you have Paola just kind of introducing herself very, very briefly. As I said, she was one of the pioneers, along with Linda Moulton Howe, in doing a lot of interviews with whistleblowers or contactees in the 1990s. Okay, now you have a lot of people with podcasts that are interviewing whistleblowers today, but it's always good to keep in mind that there's a lot of whistleblowers going back to the 1990s and earlier, and people like Paola Harris, they have the memory, they have the direct first-hand experience of interacting with them. So if you get to work with Paola in one of the classes for the Exopolitics Institute, where we do have a certificate program and a diploma program, just go to exopoliticsinstitute.org. There you'll get to see the different courses, you'll see the courses that Paola teaches, and you can register. And this is a great way of supporting veteran researchers like Paola Harris. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about Dr. Garry Nolan, who describes a death threat he received for disclosing more than the UFO control elite wanted publicly revealed. So let's listen to what Garry Nolan has to say about this threat that he received, and then we'll kind of discuss the implications of it. So let's play this.
Why amnesty is required. I've said this publicly, so I'll say it again here. I was personally threatened because I knew of a conversation that happened somewhere, and I alluded to it in the most elliptical fashion on a public broadcast. Literally a couple of days later, I get a phone call from a friend saying, XYZ at the White House is really pissed at you, and you should not ever say anything like that again because Title 18 applies. I said, what does that mean? Lethal force is operable. I'm not kidding you.
Oh my God.
I put down the phone and I honestly, I nearly broke down in tears. And I called a reporter friend of mine to just basically report it to them, to say, this just happened to me. I was just threatened. Because they knew what I was saying. Nobody else would have known what it was what I was alluding to.
Regardless of whether or not it's aliens, if they think you're disclosing their secure information, you might not. Well,
I wasn't supposed to know it because I heard it from a friend who wasn't supposed to tell me in the first place. But
okay, so there you have Garry Nolan describing this threat he received because he talked a little too much or gave a few too many details about something that the UFO control elite did not want revealed out there. Now, there's been a lot of information about assassinations of UFO researchers and experiences. And my first experience with one of these was with the whistleblower Connor O'Ryan, or Derek Hennessy, and he worked with Wendell Stevens in the early 1990s. And he talked about the existence of an assassination program to protect UFO secrecy, and that the S4 area or facility at Area 51 was used as a base for these assassins who would come from a kind of like covert military background, whether they're Navy SEALs or Delta Forces, and they were put there with these specific tasks that if a person, whether they are a foreign national or a US citizen, is revealing too much about UFOs or the controllers that are running the operations, then they get eliminated. And that's been happening for many decades. And it's very interesting that, according to Derek Hennessy or Connor O'Ryan, one of the principal political figures associated with this was Dick Cheney. Okay, so here's an announcement for the next Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection Conference in Eastbourne, UK. There's just a few tickets left, so now's the time to get to register, because these conferences do sell out, and if you don't get a ticket, you do not get in. I've been to several of these GSIC conferences, and it's very sad when someone shows up and it's like, we can't let you in, safety requirements apply and so forth. So only so many tickets can be sold. So definitely get that while you can for Eastbourne, UK. And there's also going to be a GSIC conference in September 19 to 21 in Charlotte, North Carolina. So plenty of tickets available for that. So now's a good time to register. And of course, you got Elena Danan, you got JP, myself, Danny Henderson, and a few others, Tony Rodriguez, that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and others that the English community, Hugh Newman, for example, JJ Ainsworth. So definitely, I hope you're able to consider that the Eastbourne GSIC conference. Okay, so here's an interview a former Senate staffer, Kirk McConnell, who had over 20 years' experience with the US Senate on different committees, helping various senators and so forth. He describes his personal journey from being a UFO skeptic or just non-interested to actually being a big proponent of UFOs as actually having a lot of substance to it, and that there's a lot of suppressed science associated with it. And because of his Senate background, he has a lot of background information on certain technologies that have been kind of like discussed in the Senate or suppress science. So Kirk McConnell, very interesting interview. This was on the Jesse Michaels podcast, and he's building up a very nice podcast there. And so, yeah, definitely well worth listening to this Senate staffer give you a kind of like bird's eye view from the perspective of someone working inside the US Senate who gradually got to see that this UFO issue is very, very serious, that the whistleblowers that were coming in were very credible. And so this is, I think, augurs well for the future when you have staffers as well as members of Congress, all very interested in finding the truth. Okay, so this is a post from Christopher Sharp, who writes for the Liberation Times, and he's just reaffirming that there have been a lot of people who have come forward who have been working on these UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs, and that they've all confirmed, or they've all asserted, that these UAP craft have been recovered and they're not human. And of course, the whistleblowers that are reporting on all of these range from U.S. Special Forces, the intel community, and aerospace industry insiders. So, and they're all saying the same thing: we're dealing with non-humans. So, I think this is just part of the kind of broader cultural shift now we've seen as far as UFO research is concerned. Now, the whistleblowers are taken seriously. Their testimonies are accepted as accurate, and so people want to get to the bottom of it. Journalists, others, that researchers, they want to get to the bottom of what is happening in these classified programs. So I think this is all a good thing. It's all part of the awakening that is happening. But right now, as I said earlier, it is tough going. I mean, I think the negative forces, the shadow forces, they are pretty much in control. Well, maybe that's too strong a word. Let's just say that they still have tremendous influence and causing big problems for a lot of people that want to bring out this level of information. So that's it for the Week in Review for April 5. Thank you for your patience and bearing with me as I still get over this bronchial cough I have. Hopefully by next week it'll be much better. And I look forward to seeing you then and having another discussion. So thank you and aloha.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.